All right, it's time for the meeting. No one else is here, but I'm going to go ahead and start anyway, since this is recording. Let me go ahead and share my screen, then I'll pull up my notes to help me stay on track and save your time, so I'm not rambling. Um, Speaking of saving your time, if you're watching this, you must be watching this on YouTube. Therefore, if you go to the bottom of the screen, there's a little icon, a little gear icon you can use to speed the video up. So feel free to do that. There we go. All right, so we should be seeing my screen at this point. Let me pull up my notes. There we go. So here we go. As always, I'll remind you, you can get extra credit for watching these required videos. There's two ways you can get extra credit. The first way is you can email me. And in this video, I'm going to include a list of attendance words or attendance phrases. So in the email, you need to send me just that list of words. And the very last thing I'm going to ask you to do at the end of the video is to send me, include in addition to the words, send me a question about the material presented in this video. So think about that as you're going through the video. Write down any questions you may have, and if you don't have any questions, if everything just made sense to you, just come up with some question anyway, just to confirm that you know what you think you know, because that provides evidence that you watched and paid attention to the video. I'll also remind you, when you send this email to get your extra credit, obviously your name's in the email, but you want to include your name. You want to include your full course and section number, so 108-02. And please remind me that this is the Module 6 meeting that you are writing about, because in theory, you can still go back and watch the Module 5 meeting, the Module 4 meeting, the Module 3 meeting, so on and so forth. You can still get extra credit for watching those meetings as well. Moving forward, the other way you can get extra credit, and you can do both of these, neither of these, either of these, whichever you want. The other way you can do this is summarize this discussion in Module 6. So I have this pulled up. So what I mean by that is, here in the Module 6 discussion, add discussion topic. You can write maybe for the right here for the subject, meeting summary, and then just summarize everything that I'm mentioning in this video. Obviously, again, since this is a summary, you would want it to look more like these notes, right? Just maybe bullet points, or you don't want a full transcript, right? You want to distill everything down, I say, into the important points. So feel free to do that without using these notes. Also want to point out too, if you do that, in this case, you do not want to also include the attendance words and phrases, because those are evidence that people watched the video. So if you were to put those out publicly, then people could just pretend they watched the video by sending me the attendance words. So please do not include the attendance words if you're doing a summary in discussion 6. That's all I have for extra credit. Let's jump into the Module 5 lab, which we're done with Module 5. And also, I'll point out before I get started in this conversation, I am not done grading everything for Module 5. So everything, all this feedback I'm giving you for the Module 5 discussion, Module 5 lab, this is all a little bit incomplete, because I still have a little bit of grading to do. Anyway, that brings us to our first word for attendance. And the first word for attendance is going to be person. You can see it highlighted on the screen here. The word person is the first word for attendance. That being said, let me move forward. At least one person, and again, I still have more grading to do, one person turned in just a picture. It was a picture of a graph, but that was it, and didn't include the rest of the lab. So just as a reminder, you have to turn in the entire lab, not just the graph or a table, right? You need the entire lab. The table, speaking of which, let's really quickly take a look at the issues that a lot of you have had, and you can go back and correct it. Module 6 lab, Module 5 lab, here we go. So you need, as it says right here, it's highlighted. Hopefully I was hoping that would grab your attention. You need to include the date range, right? So you're looking at 2 days, at least 2 days. You could have done more for extra credit, but I need to know what those 2 days are. Otherwise I can't look up your data. And if I can't look up your data, I can't verify that this information is correct. And if I can't verify that information is correct, I can't verify all these post hypothesis questions, right? I can't verify those are correct, because I don't know the dates you used, so I can't look it up. So make sure you do that. If you made that mistake, submit it with corrections. I'll talk about that later at the end of the end of this video. I'm not going to repeat it now, because I don't want to waste your time, and it's some stuff I've already said before. So for now, we won't worry about it. Let's move forward. as always, the graph, right? So whenever you do any graphs in this course, if it's a bar graph, the bars should be going up and down, not side to side, right? Because your independent variable is on the x-axis, right? So the bars should always be going up and down, not left to right. I think at least one person made the mistake of using a line graph instead. Now, remember, line graphs would be for continuous data. So you could have a line graph if you wanted to show the AQI for one location, over multiple days. That would make sense. But if you're just giving the average AQI of different locations, that's discrete data. Therefore, you would need a bar graph. As always, and again, I'm going to say more about this at the end of the video, but feel free to resubmit with corrections. Another mistake I saw a lot of was these are multiple part questions, multi-part, right? So starting here, is the air quality better where you are or in whatever location? That's the first part, right? And the second part is asking you why. So some people failed that. Most people didn't. But down here, these are also in this case, two-part questions. So was your hypothesis correct or incorrect was the first part. And the second part was like, hey, was it better where you are or this location? So some people did mess that up. Another thing is, where is it at here? Yeah, and this is a three-part question, and I put this in bold to help catch your eye so you would catch that. The first two parts are like the other questions. What was your hypothesis correct or incorrect? Which place had the better air quality? And also for the last two, it does ask for the number itself, right? So the rest of them didn't ask you to provide the number, but the other ones do. So I think that's it for Lab 5. Prediction, I'll come back to this. This is something I've already mentioned before in previous videos, so I'm not going to waste your time talking about it now. I'll come back to that at the end of the video. Same with this. I need you to save it as a PDF, as always, before you upload it, and I can talk more about that later as well. Speaking of which, that is our next word for attendance, PDF. PDF is the next word for attendance. That's all I have for Module 5 Lab. Let's talk about the Module 5 discussion. There's not much to say. The mistakes people made, as usual, weren't necessarily specific to Module 5. So it's the same mistakes as usual. So people aren't following the correct due dates, right? If your initial post is always due on Wednesday, your minimum of 2 replies is always due on Sunday. So some people are still messing that up. Use sources. I've been saying this over and over again. For now, I'm going to leave it at that. At the end of the video, I'll come back to that. That way, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, you can. But for now, I'll skip it. Same with this. You can make up for lost points by doing the extra credit and by doing more than 2 replies. And I've said that before, so I'm not going to waste your time talking about it. I will come back to that at the end of the video. Really quickly, exam 2 is still past due, right? That was due a while ago. We're in Module 5. We're in Module 6 now. So because of that, exam 3 is due Sunday. So because exam 3 is due Sunday, exam 2, the retake is also due Sunday if you decide you want to retake it. Again, I've already said a lot about this. So for now, I'm going to move forward before I talk about or repeat myself regarding retaking exams. Regarding exam 3, which again is due on Sunday, if you email me, I'll send you the study guide. And as always, I'll remind you, if you need more than 50 minutes to answer 50 questions, we can meet online. As long as I can proctor the exam and ensure you're taking a closed book exam, I don't care how long it takes you. That's all I have for Module 5 stuff. And again, I'm still grading, but for now, that's it. Let's look ahead to Module 6. We'll look at the lab first. I'll pull it up. It's actually quite simple. In this case, you are just watching, where are we at here? You're just watching a video, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. You're watching about 2 hours worth of videos. And really quickly, I just want to remind you, because this is always a complaint I get from at least one student every semester. You're taking an 8-week course. If you were taking the same version of this course that was 16 weeks, every week we would meet for 1 hour and 50 minutes to do a lab. So technically you should be doing 16 labs, right? But instead you're only doing 8. And I try to kind of compress them, right? So when possible, I kind of have like 2 concepts in 1 lab when possible. But anyway, so beyond the fact that it wouldn't be unheard of to ask you to do 2 labs per week, because that's what your in-person counterparts are doing, but also the time commitment, right? So you should be spending it's not unacceptable to expect you to spend almost 2 hours, or almost two, excuse me, almost 4 hours a week doing labs. But again, I don't try to do that. I just wanted to point that out because some people do complain that it's an hour and 52 minutes. So when you think about it, again, that's not very long considering you're in an 8-week course. Really quickly, let's talk about your options. So again, like I said, you're watching about 2 hours worth of videos. You have two options. The first option, in my opinion, the easiest one, is you just watch this one documentary that's 1 hour and 52 minutes. You're going to answer these questions while you're watching it. This is the same as usual. Let me pull this up. Questions. There we go. Yeah, so it's going to be as it usually is. I do want to point this out. This is usually the biggest mistake I see when people are doing Google Forms. You need to put your full name and your full course and section number. I'm not the only professor using these forms. I'm also teaching more than one section. And very often when I go to grade these, I'll hit the Control F button. And you can see here up at the top, it allows me to search, right? And what I'll do is search. I will search for your section number. So if you don't put your full course and section number, then when it comes time for me to grade it, I might miss the fact that you turned it in, because when I searched for 108-02, nothing came up. So please be careful with that. Anyway, that's option one. Regardless, that advice applies regardless of which option you do, option one versus option two. So option two, you're going to be watching two videos instead of one, but they're going to be shorter, right? So the first video you're going to watch is something called the Big Oyster. And then for your second video, you have choices. You can either watch this one, the Water Wars, or you can watch this one for Love of Water, right? Whichever one you want to watch, it's your choice. As always, you can, well, I shouldn't say as always, but maybe as usual, again, I'm only asking you to do basically 2 hours worth of videos. But if you want to do more, you can do that. So feel free to do more for extra credit. And then the other thing, I just want to make sure, please let me know in this box which option you did, right? Did you do option one or did you do option two? If you did option two, obviously you did the Big Oyster, but did you do World Water Wars or For Love of Water, right? Make sure you let me know. Technically, you should save it as a PDF. You might lose a point for that. If you don't, usually that's a bigger deal. For this lab, it's not that big of a deal. That's all I have for this week's lab. I don't think I have anything else to say about lab 6. Yep, that's just checking my notes. All right, the next word for attendance is going to be watch. Like, you need to watch 2 hours worth of videos. All right. Also, that is it for new material. So if you're watching this for extra credit, and you've watched my other videos before, you can just end it here, because everything else I'm going to say is just reiterating and repeating things I've been saying all semester. So that is the end of the video if you need extra credit. And don't forget, other than the last word for attendance, which was watch, you also need to send one question about the material presented in the video. And also to remind you, you can ask more than one question. It's just to get the points, to get the extra credit points, you need to ask at least one question, and it has to be about the material presented in this video. So that's it for new stuff. So if you're done, you're done. Go ahead. Now, from here on out, there's going to be no more attendance words or anything like that. Now I'm just going to reiterate myself and repeat some things I've said. So one thing that happened in Module 5 lab was predictions. People still aren't getting the predictions. I introduced this concept in the very first lab, and it's come up in other labs as well. We do focus more on the hypothesis than the prediction, but it has come up in other labs. So really quickly, I just want to reiterate what a prediction is. And in case you didn't remember, it's a link, right? So you can just click on this and read everything I'm about to tell you. It's all right there. And it gives plenty of examples. But here's the thing about a prediction. A prediction is an if-then statement that explains how you're going to test your hypothesis. So in this case, you would say something like, if I go to the EPA website and look up the AQI data for various locations, then I will find it's better here or it's better there, right? So in this particular case, that's what a prediction is. Like some people wrote things like, I predict my hypotheses are correct. That's not it, right? A prediction, once again, is an if-then statement that describes how you test your how you're going to test your hypothesis. Um, and also to remind you, usually in real science, if you want to use that word, you would have one hypothesis and you would come up with multiple predictions to test it, right? So in real life, when you're testing a hypothesis, you wouldn't just test it once and then your data supports your hypothesis, so you're done, right? And in real life, you would find other ways to test your hypothesis, right? The idea is to test it as many ways as you can to make sure that your hypothesis is actually correct. So that's all I have about the prediction thing. I'm gonna use sources. All right, I've been saying this every week. This is people are making the same mistakes. If you don't know what I mean by use sources and you forget right here where it says not properly using your references, just click on that, and it's not letting me. I'm able to do it like this. Open a new tab. There we go. If you don't know how to do it, it's all right here. It's all written right here, so you can read about it. Long story short, you need at least one non-textbook source. That's the first. It's the first criteria. The second one is every fact that you list in your post has to be substantiated with a source. And the other thing is we need access to your source, right? So use a link, use a working link, use a link that takes us to the exact website and not the homepage. If you, for some reason, have a link to a video or a book, which I don't recommend, but if you do that, you need to get specific. You can't just say it was in this book, because me as the person grading it and your classmates, who I like to pretend that they are reading your sources as well and making sure that you are correct. But we need, we can't watch a whole video or read a whole book. So if you're gonna cite a book, you need to be specific on what page, what paragraph, things like that. If you're watching a video, then you need to be specific and say, hey, this is 3 minutes and 45 seconds in. You have to be specific. And also, speaking of videos, but this is also true for everything else, whatever your source is, it cannot be behind a paywall. So if you can't, don't use a Netflix video, for example, because while I have Netflix, I can't presume all your classmates do. If it's a book, make sure it's not behind a paywall. If it's a website, there's a lot of online magazines that require a subscription. So make sure that's all proper. Let me move forward here. All right, we talked about sources again. It's the same thing I've been saying all semester, so nothing new there. Again, to remind you and to go to more in detail about this, for any discussion, even discussions that have passed, even though they might be behind us, you can, if you didn't get full credit, you can make up for those lost points in two ways. You can do more than 2 replies, right? Just keep doing replies until you get the full 25 points, or you can do the extra credit. And really quickly, let's just look at the extra credit. As usual, basically, I'm just looking for feedback, right? So I want ideas of how I can improve that particular, discussion. Or if you have an idea of a different discussion that would be relevant to that module, you can do that for extra credit. The way you would do that, again, you would hit add discussion topic like I've already done. And in this case, for the subject, you could put something like, extra credit feedback, right? And then provide feedback about that particular module's discussion. And as you can read here for yourself, the more useful the feedback is, the more points you're going to get. So like you can see here, if you just write, this discussion sucks, you're probably not going to get any, or this discussion is great. You're probably not going to get many points for that, because whether you think it's great or it sucks, it doesn't really help me. I need to know why you think it was great or why you think it sucks. So, the more insight, the better. And again, like I mentioned earlier, if you have a different idea for a discussion we could do, that would be great too. That would earn you probably a little bit more points than usual. And then if you really wanted to earn a lot of points, you could just take this whole prompt like I have here and just edit it so it could reflect your idea of a different discussion that could be done. So again, the more useful your feedback is, the more extra credit points you will get. And again, to remind you, even though we are starting module 6, if there's any module behind us where you didn't get full credit, you can go back and do those things. which reminds me right here to remind you, like I've been saying all semester, if it's late, like if you're doing something late or you're making corrections, officially the syllabus says that's not accepted. Late work's not accepted. Once you've turned something in, that is what it is. That's the syllabus policy. I'm telling you unofficially, I'm recommending that you do make corrections and that you do turn in late work and you do turn in extra work. But I just want to remind you that that is the bottom of my priority list. So when I'm looking, I'm checking my emails today, I'm just grading everything, that's new. And when I'm caught up with everything that's new and pressing, then I go back and I start grading things that have been turned in late or, that someone has submitted corrections or things like that. So I promise you I'll try my best to get it done. But the disclaimer there is, again, I might not get it done. So you might make these corrections and they just might not get graded. What else? Other things that I didn't want to talk about earlier because I didn't want to repeat myself. Oh yeah, so the retake, right? So just like the other retake for exam one, you can retake it as many times as you want. It's open book. It's not timed. The only catch is or not even catch, but the reminder I'll give you is you have to let me know, right? So when you're done doing it, your grade's not going to change automatically, and I have no way of knowing that you retook the exam. So you need to contact me and request that I adjust your grade. But anyway, another thing too, that I'm going to repeat myself. Again, on Sunday, you can no longer retake exam 2. So at that point, you can meet me online so I can give you the correct answers to exam 2. And you can still do that for exam 1. And there's 2 purposes for that. First of all, you can get all the correct answers, which you're going to need for the final exam because the final exam is half cumulative and based on the first 3 exams. So basically your first 3 exams are your study guide for the final. So that would be helpful to have the correct answers. In addition to that, as is the case with pretty much any assignment in this course, if you meet me online to get that feedback, not only will you get the feedback, but you get a 5% boost to that grade. So I recommend taking advantage of that, whether it be exam 2 that you do that next week, or maybe meet me this week for exam 1, whatever the case may be. I highly recommend meeting me for that feedback and those correct answers. What else did I not want to repeat? Yeah, I think the last thing I can think of is the extra credit. As I've mentioned previously, I forgot which module it was, sometime this semester. For the first time ever, I am providing an incentive to get things turned in early, and you can read all about it in the course announcements. I'm not going to waste your time talking about it again now, but if you turn if you turn a lab in early, the sooner you turn it in, the more points you get. Same thing with your discussion replies. The sooner you turn them in, the more points you get. You get that extra credit. And in addition to that, speaking of turning in labs early, I'll just show you this very quickly as an example. Oh yeah, first of all, before I do that, sorry. Like it says right here, remind me, right? So if you didn't get extra credit and you turned something in early enough to get extra credit, remind me and I'll add those points. Because like I said, this is still new to me. And I also do, as you know, a million other extra credit things. So it's easy for me for this to slip my mind. So remind me if I didn't give you your extra credit. The way you can tell about getting extra credit with your lab, well, actually, let's talk about the discussion first of all. For your replies, you're supposed to get five points, and then again, extra credit if you turn it in early. So really, for the discussion replies, you might just have to ask me if you got your extra credit. Obviously, if you got anything more than a 5, you did get your extra credit. But if you get 5 or below, feel free to ask me if you got the extra credit. With the lab, let's take a really quick look here. It's going to look a little bit different because we would be looking at it via My Online instead of this Google document like this. But anyway, right here at the bottom, at the end of every lab, it says before the due date. Right. So if you turn it in early enough and you get the extra credit, this is exactly where I would put it. So in like big bright red letters, I might put +10 if you turned it in on a Monday, or a +8 if you turned it in on a Tuesday. So that's how you'll know. So again, if you turn something in early, turn in a lab early, and you didn't get full credit, then let me know, because you want to make sure. Excuse me, if you didn't get full credit and you didn't get extra credit, let me know. Now, obviously, if you don't see the fact that I put plus 10 or whatever it is right here, but you got full credit for the lab, then there's nothing you need to worry about, because 25 points is all you can get anyway. So your extra credit wouldn't have even mattered. And I think that's all I have. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but that's why I did this last portion at the end of the video. Yeah. So I guess last thing I'll remind you, as I say every week, and that I've put in writing a few times, you don't have to do any of this alone. Even though this is an online course, as far as I'm concerned, it could be an in-person course. Whether you're working on a discussion, or a lab, or maybe even a test or a quiz, I'm here to help. Now, obviously, with a test or a quiz, I can't give you the answers, but if you need help, like, hey, what exactly are you trying to ask here? Please let me know. I'd be happy to help. But definitely with the labs and the discussions, like I have some people, when I get the feedback, maybe the extra credit feedback, oh, this discussion prompt wasn't clear. And thank you for the feedback, right? And you got your points. But also, if something's not clear to you, come to me, right? Meet me online. Walk I can walk you through any assignment, right? I can explain anything you need explained. That's option one. The other option, as I mentioned before, is before you submit an assignment, take 5 minutes out of your day, meet me online. We'll look it over together, and I'll just give you big feedback. I'm not going to sit there and make you wait for me to grade your paper or your assignment, but I can look it over and look at the big stuff. Like, oh wow, you forgot the screenshot, so you're going to lose a lot of points for that. Or so those are the things I would look at. I would look at the big stuff, the stuff the mistakes I usually see, and things like that. So yeah, spend those 5 minutes, and let me help you. And I think that's all I have. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. As always, if you have questions, let me know. I'm here to help. Yeah, and that's it. I hope you have a great week.